everybody. Welcome. James Van Praagh, Life, Ever, Death, and Beyond. And our new opening. Yay!
Yay!
Hello, Kellee, right?
Hi, James. How are
Have a
you
new
today?
opening.
I love the new opening.
Isn't it a beautiful opening? My goodness.
Yes.
Wow. Hi, Kellee. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you. Thank you. The lovely flowers that are behind me right here.
Oh,
Thank you. That's from Kellee.
So welcome. So tell everybody about your birthday. You were in a very special place over the weekend.
Yes, it was a very special birthday, and it was taking place. I drove Thursday to Phoenix from San Diego, which was 6 hours, and I drove along the northern part of Mexico, the border between Arizona and Mexico, and it was a beautiful, beautiful drive. I went with my friend Julie, and we went to Phoenix to a reservation, a hotel and reservation, and it was a conference for helping parents heal, and it was Parents Who Lost Children, and there were 1,200 participants. And I was the headliner, I guess you'd say. I did an evening demonstration, morning demonstration, teaching, book signings, and there were other mediums there and other teachers there and a therapist and so forth. And it was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful organization, international. Had some lovely people from around the world. And yeah, it was great. So we got.
I bet there was a lot of healing for everybody.
A lot of healing, a lot of things. People said, I've never heard that before. I can really relate to you. Thank you very much. One lady said, I really shouldn't have expectations. I said, well, why? She goes, because I didn't think I'd like you, but I really liked you. I said, I'm glad about that.
People say the darndest things, huh?
People say the darndest things. So it was really fun to meet people and nice. And yeah, it was great. Enjoyed it. Been 6 hours home yesterday. And, if you do a long road trip like that, you want to bring someone you love. And I had my friend Julie with me. We were laughing the whole time.
Oh, good.
How was your weekend?
It was very peaceful. Peaceful. Thank you. But I'm so excited tonight, James, because we're going to be talking about my favorite book that you wrote, and it happens to be my favorite book of all time, which is Talking to Heaven, which is, my cover's coming off. I mean, I
have one of the original. One of the original.
Well, I had the original, but unfortunately, I gave it away.
Original 6,000 first printing.
James, I tell you, let me just tell people that maybe are not familiar with your background a little bit, because I know we don't talk about your background very much, but I think it's important for people to know that you are an internationally renowned #1 New York Times best-selling author of over, I think it's 15 spiritual classics now.
Well, 15, yeah, I guess you should say 15.
We're 15. Talking to Heaven was the first one. And then there's The Power of Love and Wisdom from Your Spirit Guides. And we could go on and on. But you are hailed throughout
the Growing Up in
Power
Heaven,
of Love.
About children who passed over.
That's right. Unfinished Business.
Healing Grief. Unfinished Business, yeah. A lot
of amazing books. And I know as you would have the new books come out, James, every book I get so excited to read. I was just so thrilled to read the next book. But you are hailed throughout the world as a pioneer of the mediumship movement and recognized as one of the most accurate, and I would say the most accurate, spiritual medium working today. Your messages have brought solace, peace, and spiritual insights, changing millions' view of both life and death. Now, you've also appeared on every national radio and television show, including Oprah, Larry King Live, Dr. Phil, The View, Coast to Coast, and many, many more. You also had a nationally syndicated show, Beyond.
Yes.
You were also a successful producer for CBS, creating a miniseries, Living with the Dead, based on your life, and The Dead Will Tell, starring Ava Longoria, which I know we'll talk about a little later.
Yes.
And you were the creator and executive producer of CBS's long-running series, The Ghost Whisperer, starring Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Didn't get the credit for that, but yes, I created it.
Oh my gosh! And then you began the James Van Praagh School of Mystical Arts.
Yes.
Which really has subjects ranging from meditation to mediumship.
It's my legacy.
It sure is. I mean, you've been able to bridge the physical and the spiritual world. Yeah. And it's amazing to me. And your book, Talking to Heaven, is part spiritual memoir, part case study, part instrumental guide. And it will change the way, if you haven't read it, everybody, it will change the way you perceive death and life. And that is what happened to me, James, when I read your book. I was changed forever. It is, for people that don't know, it is the seminal book. It's the book that influenced the world with regard to spirituality. It changed and shifted the consciousness of the planet. And I would love to know, James, what inspired you to write this book? The timing was incredible.
Well, really, Kelly, it's really, again, the longer I live every day, I get more and more. And I thought about it earlier today. The intelligence of the spirit world, they're all around us. And the strings that they pull to make things happen is pretty incredible. And I think that we all should be in awe of those beings around us, our loved ones, our guides, higher, beings of other levels and worlds that work with us in the physical to inspire us. So I think I came back to do this work. The beginning, I really just wanted to be a sitcom writer. Swear to God,
You've been great at that.
Broadway. I was a Broadway stagehand, seriously, and I was working on the original show Grease and Whose Life Is It Anyway, and Day in Hollywood, Night in the Ukraine, and Song and Dance, and a lot of different things. And I would watch the shows on the stage, and I thought, I can do that. I can be an actor, but I have a legit voice. And I used to audition for shows, and I was working at the theater at night, paying for school. I was going to Hunter College in New York for broadcasting, for sitcom. And then one day I figured, you know what? I got to get out of here. So I looked up a school that could afford. It was San Francisco State University. Went there for a broadcasting degree. I finished my degree, and the last year of my degree, they had what's called a broadcasting conference of all their old alumni to come back and have a conference. And I was the one in charge of driving the people around. So I was driving the producers of Hill Street Blues around, Tony Yurkovich and the other guy that was with him, Dave Onspot. And I said to him as I'm driving to this campus, do you have any jobs open for a production assistant because I'm just graduating? And Tony Yurkovich said, yes, we do. Come on down by July 7th at MTM Studios, Mary Tyler Studios in Studio City, California. Yeah. You got a job. And I'm like, ah! And it was a miracle. Like, wow, this has happened. This is incredible. So I literally, went back to New York where I'd lived. And I don't know, I saved up $5,000 or $6,000. I got a used car. I packed up, ready to go. I had to get back out by July 7th. My mother had a stroke, and she had aphasia, so she couldn't speak, and she was in the hospital. And I went to see her, and I asked her, would you mind if I go? And she couldn't speak, but I knew that she wanted me to follow my dream. So I had to leave her there. First country, first time. I made it out in 4 days because I rushed. And I got to the MTM studios, and I told them, Tony Yurkovich told me to call, and they said, I'm sorry, we don't hire people that way. And I said, can I leave a message for him? Sure. Never heard back from the man. This is before
my God.
Machines. Never heard back. And I'm literally on a Gower Street in Hollywood, which I'd never been before. I'm sitting in my car, I look out the window, and there's a Hollywood sign. I'm like, what is this? What's going on? And this is before anything spiritual or psychic. I didn't know. I thought, why did this happen? What's going on? So I took a series of temporary jobs. One was a runner in a production company at the MTM studios for another production company. And a runner would do errands, bring scripts, deliver scripts and legal papers to lawyers. And I'd go over the hill from San Fernando Valley to LA and like 20 times a day in my used car, which was breaking down. And I used the Thomas Guide map in those days. Yes. And but funny enough, that's how I got to learn LA. Isn't that interesting? I got to learn that. So long story short, I ended up doing a temporary job at William Morris Talent Agency, which was the biggest at the time.
It was huge to get in there.
And I thought, well, maybe I'll meet an agent and they'll get me a sitcom. Well, I did write a spec script for Cheers, and I actually got an episode of Ted Turner's first show, Safe at Home. It was the first sitcom he did on the Ted Turner cable network. Did that, and then Love American Style, the new series when it came back, did one of those episodes. And but it was at that place in William Morris Agency. I wasn't even in the mailroom. I was in the basement. And I was pulling out staples out of contracts 8 hours a day in a windowless basement with just shelves and cement. And there was one other guy named Brian Lord who was next to me. And he would pull out staples, I would pull staples. And I would amuse myself just singing around and playing, talking to Brian. And I said, Brian, if you ever make it big, will you remember me? He goes, yes, James, will you remember me? I said, yes. Brian Lord is now the head #1 agent in the world. He's like,
wow.
Big man. So if everyone looks him up, he's #1. And he remembered me. I called him up about, 7 years ago. Do you remember me? He goes, James, how are you? So good enough. But it was at that time that I was pulling out these staples, and I was amused by the contracts. There was Lucille Ball, Groucho Marx, all these different very well-known people in the 30s and 40s. And we were preparing these contracts for microfiche.
Wow.
Remember microfiche, which is now, right? So we're preparing those, and I loved it, enjoyed it, and I thought I'd meet some agent. But what happened was I met my supervisor, Carol Shoemaker, and she came down the basement and she said, James, would you like to go see a medium? And I said, well, what's a medium? She said, somebody talks to dead people. And I said, oh, I don't believe in that sort of thing. I said, yeah, I go Catholic. I don't believe that either, but I don't really, that's not my thing. But just to amuse her and humor her, I went to see this man, Brian Hurst, Manhattan Beach, and walked into his apartment. And he looked at me and he said, you're a medium. And I said, huh? And he said, you're a medium. I said, oh, thank you. I think I'm small, medium, at large. My sense of humor. And I said, I'm a sitcom writer. He goes, no, the spirit world are going to use you in 2 years. I said, I beg your pardon? He said, the spirit world are telling me they're going to use you in 2 years to help change the consciousness of the planet. And I said, I just want to be a sitcom writer. That's all I want to do. So he came through with amazing details and evidence of family members that had passed over, uncles I didn't know I knew, that had the same name as me, which I never knew, details, evidence. He was very good. And he got me thinking about, wow, he said this stuff. How did he do this? So I went then to the Bodhi Tree bookstore, which was, as you know, the New Age Mecca.
The bookstore.
The place. And they had lovely sections about life after death, psychic phenomena, ESP, all different, Edgar Casey, everything they had, holistic studies. And I would go every weekend and sit in that bookstore and just, they let you sit down and read. And I read anything I could. I was like a sponge. And I learned about meditation. And I thought, I want to be a well-known producer and sitcom writer. I want to be well-known with that, with television. So I used to visualize that and meditate. And I meditate the visualization. And I didn't really know how to meditate, but I used a rose. And I inhaled, just love, and exhale fear, which I still do. Anyway, it was then that I was the temporary jobs were continuing. I left William Morris, a bunch of other temporary jobs, ended up at Paramount Studios as a paralegal because I had this contract experience. And I did syndication TV station, syndication shows for TV stations all over the country. So I set up the contracts. And it was during that time that a friend of mine next to me, in the cubicle next to me, her name was Jo Dallas. She walked in at lunchtime, 12:30, and I saw this lady behind her, and it was a dead woman, which I'd never seen since I was a child.
First time you'd ever seen this, except when you were a child.
Except when I was a child. Yep. And this lady behind her, I knew was her grandmother, and she looked at me like this, dead right. I'm like, oh. And she didn't say anything verbally. She telepathically. She said, I'm her grandmother. I lived in Indiana. I think it was Indiana. I had a White House, yellow shutters. We did a footstool cover together. We did needlepoint together. And I said, okay. And I asked Jo, would you mind if I asked you a question? She said, no, go ahead. And I told her what I was receiving. And she said, oh, that's my grandmama. We made a promise that she would come through to me from heaven and let me know she's okay. And she told me about the house and the needlepoint.
Wow.
So I freaked out completely.
I bet.
Freaked out. I ran out of Paramount Studios, never come back again. And I ran to my apartment, pacing back and forth, thinking I was crazy because how can I live in this world? I can't tell people about this. How can I survive having these
Especially, I want everybody to know that during that period of time, we're talking about like the 80s, late 80s?
90, it was 92, maybe 90, maybe 89.
It wasn't acceptable.
It was unknown. There was George Anderson from New York he wrote a couple of books and he was known for that. Did do a lot of television. So that was probably the first time. So Brian Hurst, my teacher, the man who gave me that reading, I thought, I got to call I'll call him up. I had his phone number. And I called him up and told him. And he said, well, James, don't you remember the prediction the spirit world made for you? I said, yes. He said, James, that was 2 years ago today.
Oh, my goodness.
So he took me under his wing and taught me a lot, and set in what's called a development circle every week, where you build up your power of your sensitivity, if you will. And he really helped me with learning about guides and energy and how to close and open, how to be
But during that time, James, were you letting go of your old life and the dreams of wanting to do that?
To a point.
Okay.
I was then invited to Leslie Flint seances, which everybody should look up Leslie Flint, because Leslie Flint was the last great physical medium where ectoplasm, a substance, would come out of his ears and his nose, and the spirit world would create an artificial voice box, a larynx. And the spirit would speak through that, project a thought into the larynx, and it would vibrate like their voices did on the earth. So Ruta Valentino's come through, Oscar Wilde's come through, Queen Victoria's come through. You can hear it online. They have a Leslie Flint Foundation, and you can hear these actual recordings because we're two scientists, Betty Woods and Mr. Green, that they recorded these reel-to-reel. They recorded these sessions from the 50s, I believe the 50s or early 60s, until about the late 70s. And I recorded a session with me. I sat with Leslie. It was a friend of Brian Hurst. So I sat with Leslie 4 times. And there was one time where the voices came through whispers, and it was all, different kinds of voices. This is ventriloquism. And nothing happened for me, but someone else. Another time, nothing happened. Third time, something happened for somebody else, nothing for me. Fourth time, something happened, and all of a sudden, in the middle of it, we heard, and I have this on a cassette. My friend Ursula taped this. There she was there. I want to talk to James. I want to talk to, and the voice of Bill. I want to talk to James. James, can you hear me, James? James, can you hear me? It was a Frenchman, and I was scared. It was 85 because my mother had just passed recently. So 86 maybe. So I said, yes, I hear you. I hear you. He goes, James, you hear us? We believe in you, my friend. My friend, we have many plans for you, my friend. Do you hear me? Yes. You're going to write a book one day. You're going to travel over water. You're going to help many people, my friend. We cheer for you. We're excited for you. You won't know what this means now, but later on, you will. You will help so many people, my friend. We are here for you. You're a psychic, a sensitive. We're working for you. So I have this recording.
Wow.
Amazing. And I was like shocked. Is my mother there? But is my mother there? So I never believe that. And my mother came through with her voice and her inclination of her voice saying, Jamie, Jamie. She whispered, it was her voice. And Brian, my teacher, asked her some questions, and she used to work for Walt Disney in the 40s. And he said, have you seen Walt? And she goes, yes, I've seen Walt. And talked about my father's name and a diamond ring that fell apart. And yes, it was amazing. So then it came a point in my development with Brian Hurst. I was doing a temporary job, then I'm working with Brian in development. And there came a point where my guides were coming through. And I was very clear with my guides. And they said, if you work with us, we will always take care of you. You will never be in need. And I quit Paramount Studios. I quit a job where I had insurance and good pay. And I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent, how I was going to get groceries. I had no money. But I just believed in it so strongly because I felt the energy so strong that I started doing readings for people. And for 7 years, I sat in development for 7 years, and I did one reading until the 7th year. And then I started giving a reading. I felt confident because you got to build the confidence. Yeah. And people started coming to me. I did 2 readings a day in my apartment. I was booked within, I don't know, it was all word of mouth. Within the first week I started, I was booked within a month, then 2 months, then 3 months, then 6 months, then a year. And then I had people come to me, and these producer of Unsolved Mysteries came to me, and she had done that show. Then another producer came for, there was an NBC pilot called The Other Side. And it was the first time NBC with that. You probably remember the morning talk show at 9 o'clock. Yeah. And they wanted to do subjects as far as life after death, psychic phenomena, and so forth. So they had me on there, and I did a pilot for them. They tested the pilot in Las Vegas. It went through the roof. And they had me on the show. I was on the show the most there, I guess. But they had Sylvia Brown, they had other people, that scientists. Good show before its time. But from that, I got then Unsolved Mysteries went on the air. And then, it was crazy. Oh, so then what happened was there was a lady, Wendy Walker, was a producer of Larry King. And she called me up and said, do you want to be on the Larry King? I said, sure. And she goes, well, do you have a gimmick? And I said, a gimmick? And she said, huh? I said, I talk to dead people. She goes, like any celebrities? I said, no, I just talk to dead people. She goes, okay, well, maybe later, no time. So it did. So then that was it. I kept her card. And then I think 2 years later, then I sat and developed with my good friend Peter Redgrove and other people at his house every week. And Peter was the one who really influenced me. I did a reading for him. And it's probably one of the best readings I've ever done, Connections. In Peter's reading, someone came through named Robert. And Robert said to Peter, I'm of your blood. Do you know me? I'm Robert. And he goes, no, I don't know. He said, he's of your blood. And Peter went home and called his relatives in England. And his aunt said, wow, how did you know that name? Your mother had a baby before you named Robert that was stillborn. And more other things. And then, there were a lot of great, those were the best readings. So Peter pushed me really to influence me to write this book. He said, you need to write this book. You're going to help many, many people. It's your destiny. And he felt it was his job this time around to push me to write that book. And I did. And I went around, and it's the whole story. It was just weird. The night I went to New York on a red eye, it was in February, I can't remember the year, it was 96 maybe. But I was good friends with Audrey Meadows. She was a client of mine, Audrey Meadows. Really wonderful lady for many years. And it came up, her husband, Bob, came through. And he said, you got to stop smoking because you can get lung cancer. Okay, Bob. Well, she ended up getting lung cancer. And a friend of mine called me up this night in February, and he said, she's in Cedars-Sinai Hospital in LA. I said, oh my God. Now, she asked me if I would help her pass over when it was her time. And I promised her I would. This is how Spirit works. So I ran over to Cedars-Sinai, not knowing what room or anything. I just went to the front desk. Audrey Six, her name was. They go, we don't have anybody with that name. And I thought, oh, we can't say anything. She's a celebrity. So as if Kellee entranced, I went across the street, pressed the elevator button, pressed number 4, thinking celebrities on the 4th floor, went up, went to the right, went down the hall, and I looked at this room, and this nurse said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "I'm looking for Audrey 6." And she goes, "Well, what does she have?" I said, "She has cancer." And she said, "Oh, that'd be on the top other floor up." So I walked away. I said, "Thank you." Walked away. She goes, "Wait a minute. That's such a strange name. Let me look it up." She goes, "Huh, that's weird. Her room is right here."
Oh my gosh.
So I walked in, and her Filipino nurse, her helper, was there. She goes, "Can I help you?" And Audrey was in a coma. It was like this. And I said, "Yes, I'm her spiritual counselor. I promised I'd help her." "Only 5 minutes." I said, "Okay." So the lady left. And I went up to Audrey and I talked to her because, hearing is the last thing that goes. And I said, "Audrey, it's okay. This is James. It's here. It's okay to go now. Robert's there, your husband, and I met the people that were there, and Jackie and all these people." I said, "It's okay to go now. You're free. You're free. Let yourself just breathe out and go." And then I kissed her and turned around, and I was walking out, and I turned to look at her, and her head was turned the other way.
Oh,
right?
she heard you.
Yes, she heard me. So then that night I went to New York on a red eye, and it was freezing cold. It was snowing in New York. 6 o'clock in the morning I landed, got into a taxi cab, and there was WINS News. It was a 24-hour news station. And as soon as I said it, I heard, "Honeymooner, Audrey Meadows passed away last night."
Oh,
So I was like shocked. Got to the hotel in Manhattan, got to the lobby, and it was freezing. And some homeless person walked up to me and he goes, "Shame about that honeymooner, isn't it?"
wow.
So when I got to my room, I slept my first meeting was at 10 o'clock in the morning. I slept till 9. I was very tired. Got up, ran down 6th Avenue in freezing snow, ran down there, and I stopped at the red light and looked over the side, and there was a store. And those days, they had statues of celebrities. And my eyes hit Jackie Gleason looking right at me. So I went to a series of publishers, all different types of publishers. And one of them was Penguin Putnam. A lot of them said no. HarperCollins said no. A lot of big ones, Sun said no. Never turned it down. No one wants to know about death. It's depressing. Okay, but there was a girl named Danielle Perez at Dutton Books, and I talked to her. I said, "Everybody wants to know about. We share two common experiences. One is birth. We know about that, and the other is death. And people need to know. Everyone wants to know." Said, "This will do it." And she bought the book. She bought the book. And it was 6,000 copies. And the book.
Do you think that Audrey helped you with that?
I think there was a lot of help from that because this is their wish. This is their project.
Absolutely.
That Frenchmen and all the rest of them had this.
Yeah.
This was their work from the other side. And what happened was I had to get publicity, and no one really would have me on shows. So I had that business card from Wendy Walker from years ago. And I called her up one afternoon. I said, "This is James Van Praagh." "Oh, hi. I have the gimmick, the book." She goes, "Well, I don't think Larry's doing that anymore." And as soon as she said that, her father came through and talked about her mother having his broken glasses. She only the left side the stem is there, the right is gone. She takes 10 pills and lower it down to 5. She's trouble with all these details. And she says, "Let me call you right back." So she called her back in 5 minutes. She goes, "Oh my God, everything you said is right." My mother's like, "Oh," and it was a Friday. I think it was December 10th. And she said, "What are you doing tonight?" And I said, "Nothing." She goes, "Do you want to be on the show?" And I said, "Yes." So look at how spirit worked. That show, Larry King Live, was available that night. They usually booked out months ahead. And I mean, that's how it worked. And I got to that show, and Larry was great. Larry was like my father. He was from the Bronx. My father's from the Bronx in Brooklyn. And the calls went from CNN, sort of 6 o'clock on a Friday. And the calls did not end at CNN bureaus around the world to 3 p.m. on Sunday. And people, the book went from 6,000 to 600,000 in a month. And they called it the miracle of publishing. And there were 60 languages worldwide. It was crazy. It was great. And then you said your friend.
My girlfriend, Charlene, was watching Larry King Live. It was in December, because I remember this very well, James. And you were talking about a man who was in the hospital in Burbank, who had an aneurysm in his brain. He was Italian, and he played with his zipper, and he had a special nickname named Zip. And my friend is screaming at the TV, "That's my dad. His name is Zip. He's Italian. That's how he died recently." I mean, you had every single thing there. So she immediately, the next day, you were at the Bodhi Tree. And so she waited in a 2-hour line, got to meet you, bought a book for me. It was autographed from you to me. She brought it to my house. I inhaled it like it was manna from heaven. I just inhaled this book. And unfortunately, I gave that copy away to everybody. I wanted everybody to read it because it was such an important work. And at that time, James, I swear to God, as I'm reading the book,
Yeah.
I said to myself, and I don't know how I would have known to say this, but I said, I'm going to know that man. I'm going to know him very well. And that was, I didn't meet you until maybe 5 years later, 4 or 5 years later, but it was a change in my life. That book changed my life.
Yeah, a lot of people have mentioned it's changed their life. A lot of people used to walk in a bookstore and it would fall off the shelf or fly off the shelf. A lot of those experiences. A lot of those experiences.
Well, you know, in the book you talk a lot about spirit guides, and I love the chapter when you go through different spirit guides because you actually tell everybody how to greet how to meet their spirit guide. So every night, even though I was a business executive, every single night I would say, "Spirit guides, I want to meet you. Spirit guides, show yourself to me. Spirit guides, tell me your names." And then it actually happened, which changed my life. But that's another story. But it was your book that opened that up. That's in my book. But I will tell you, all of your messages on. Oh, and I do have to say this, everybody, because I want everybody to know this.
Oh, yeah.
I love this book so much. Again, the cover's battered and coming off, but I love this book, and I read it every once in a while. I'll just pick it up to read it. And it was interesting that you, on 149, on a chapter called Suicide, you talk about before coming into an earthly incarnation, a soul prepares for its new life in the spiritual realms. It is common for a soul to return to a field of work in which it has had previous lifetimes of interest or experience. Let's say a soul plans to experience earth life in the year 2021 as a medical professional. It will spend time with its guides and teachers perfecting necessary skills and will look into medical breakthroughs and technologies that will be available at that time. It may also become aware of new diseases that will affect humankind. And you wrote this in 1996 or 97, is that right?
Yeah.
I thought that was just amazing that you have that. Amazing.
Just came through, just inspiration, yeah.
It was amazing to me. So tell everybody.
The cover of the book, by the way, the cover of this book.
Okay.
And not the cover from when I was in Brazil. I went down to Brazil before the book was ever published, and I used to bring groups of people down to spiritual centers. And I remember I was coming from Brasilia, flying to Rio, and all these cumulus clouds. And I said, "That's the cover of my book." And that's it.
Is that how you got that? Well, you're so good with all of that. I mean, you're so creative with this.
And then I've had, after that I was successful with number one. And I mean, people would meet me at the airports. Then I did a reading for Cher, and she went on the Tonight Show and told everybody that Sonny came through. Amazing reading. Armenian names. It was like, and Cher, a great story with Cher was so funny. We go to in her place in Malibu. She was shorter than I was. I'm like,
yeah, she's tiny.
Shorter, which I thought was hysterical. So real, so great. We get up there and I said, "Do you want to record this?" And she goes, "Okay." I said, "Well, record it." She goes, hit the caller, says, Jen, you know how to use this thing? I don't know how to use it. I said, "Wait a minute. You're a well-known world musician, a global, incredible musician, and you know how to use a tape recorder?" She was so fun. She was great. Yeah. But that was that from her mentioning that Tonight Show, I was having press meet me at during my book tours at different airports. Wow. Because I would never say anything to people that I've read. That was confidentiality, but she made it public.
Well, James, tell us, what were some of the famous people that have come through to you and some of the famous people that you've read?
Kellee, let me get my list.
Get your list out.
I couldn't remember. It's been 40 years about it. So some of the people I've read: Cher, Gloria Estefan, Goldie Hawn, Joan Rivers, Shirley MacLaine, Elle DeGeneres, Katie Couric, Wesley Snipes, Larry King, and then many others. But I refused Barbara Streisand, and I refused Oprah Winfrey.
Oh
well. And then because it wouldn't be right, because they want to control it, I felt. Who's come through me? Ben Franklin's come through me. I have a great Abe Lincoln story, which I have to share with everybody, because this is a great story. Going on with what we're talking about. So before my show Beyond, now when my show was, my book was number one, I had a lady from the Universal, her name, I forget what her name was. She was a producer over there, and she said, "Listen, the Science Fiction Network is coming out, and we want to do a show on a medium." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "That in New York." I can't remember. Bonnie Hammer. And she said, "We'd like to use you as a medium." I said, "Well," and I think to myself, science fiction. I went up against all those skeptics. I mean, I heard about cold reading. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Nothing to do with it. I had Michael Shermer and amazing Randy and all these weird people. I'm like, huh? What are they talking about? So I said, listen, I don't want to be on the TV with Science Fiction Network. I don't feel good. I said, but there was a man I just finished working with in New York. He wasn't well known. He was working in a hospital doing readings inside. His name John Edward. I said, you should call John. He might be able to do it. And that's how he got his show Crossing Over.
Wow. That's a big story, James.
Big story. That's how that happened. It's truth. And then what else? Got Sylvia Browne, her first book deal at Dutton Books. The president called me up and she said, listen, we have another psychic we'd like to do a deal with. Would you be upset about that? And I said, no, as long as it's published at a different time, that's fine with me. There's a lot of room for everyone. Sylvia Browne. Wow. Who was on the other side with me that showed the other side. And if those remember Sylvia Browne, there was a long row of people on stage and what the subject was. And during the commercial break, I leaned over and said, Sylvia, nice to meet you. She goes, I heard about you. It's good to see men doing this work. That was Sylvia. Lovely Sylvia.
A good shout out.
Shout out, Sylvia. And who's since come back and apologized to me, by the way.
Remember that?
Yeah. Who else has come through? Let's see. We've had Ben Franklin. Abe Lincoln. Let me tell that story.
Yeah.
So Abe Lincoln, one afternoon, I was before my Beyond show. And I remember I was having a fight with my partner, Brian, at the time. And I had a shot of tequila. And I went up to my bedroom. I'm going to sleep. It was like 8 o'clock at night. And I'm starting to fall asleep. And I'm aware of a being at the end of the bed. And he's standing there. I'm like, and I kind of knew him, but I'm like, who is that? And I said, you look like Abe Lincoln. He goes, that would be the personality you would know me of. We come from the New Order. I said, the New Order? I'm very skeptical, very cynical New Yorker. The New Order goes, we're helping you to change the consciousness. We are working with you on your show. We will be with you. I'm like, are you really Abe Lincoln? Are you really Abe? We are. You wouldn't, that's how you know me, but the New Order, please know we're with you. I said, I need proof. Yes, proof. You'll have your proof tomorrow. But remember, we told you, okay, I just need proof and I'll believe you. So the next morning, I wake up to this sound of a fax machine going off. And there was a book called Heaven and Earth I was working on. And Linda Thompson, who, was helping to edit the book. And she put in the last chapter of questions and answers. And I would look it over to see what was going on. And she answered one of the questions. It was, what is a premonition? And she wrote something about, it is before a foresight for an event happens. Like the very famous Abraham Lincoln scene of his funeral, which he saw.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was like, huh? And I freaked out. That night I was paying bills at my dining room table. And I was writing things up, and my wallet fell off the table. I looked down, and there was a $5 bill come out with Lincoln looking straight at me.
Oh, my gosh. Really trying to get your attention.
And since that day, it doesn't happen anymore, but probably for 2 years straight, every single day, I would have a reference from Lincoln, whether it was a commercial about Lincoln Insurance or a billboard about Lincoln or following a truck that's Lincoln or somebody who interviewed me about Lincoln, or I went on stage and there was a penny looking at me. I mean, every day for 2 years, Lincoln. So that's about Lincoln's story.
Wow.
Very cool. And I think I was alive during that time with Abe. I think I was a Union soldier. I think I knew him. Nicole Brown Simpson. These are just some of the people.
What happened with Nicole Brown Simpson?
Nicole Brown Simpson came through. I did a read for her sister. She passed. At the Roseanne Barr show. You remember Roseanne?
Of course.
I like Roseanne. Actually, Roseanne was very nice to me. Let's see. Stephen Sondheim. Doris Duke. Remember Doris Duke?
Of course I do.
Doris Duke. Yeah. Princess Diana. Sonny Bono. Liberace was a great one.
What was Liberace about?
That was a great one. I was in my apartment in Hollywood doing 11 o'clock and 7 o'clock readings. So 11 o'clock, a gentleman comes in. I'm doing this reading, and I said, I want to play the piano. I said, I'm playing the piano. He said, Lee is here. Lee is here. He goes, oh, that's Liberace. I said, oh, is it? He goes, yeah, I was his manager. And I was at the CVS before this, is years ago. He said, I was getting a tape, a cassette tape. And I said in line, Lee, please show up and use your name, Lee. That was Liberace. And since then, Liberace's been around me a lot. I bought a house in Palm Springs, right near his house happened to be. On stage at Celebrity Theater in Phoenix. And it was a round stage. And I got on there, and I see this, I don't know, tinsel or something on the feathers on the stage. And I thought of him. And then I went to my dressing room, and there was a picture of him right there in the door.
Oh, my gosh.
I got to the stage manager, said, oh, this is Liberace's theater. We built a round stage for him when he played the piano. So I felt him a lot. Who else? Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers, great.
Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers, I was on her show. She's the nicest people I've met, honestly, she was. And I was on her show when she had a Joan Rivers show, daytime show. And I said to her, Edgar came through, the man who committed suicide, completed suicide. And he said, there's going to be a movie. I said, he's letting me get on a movie with you and Melissa. And she goes, oh, well. And 2 years later, there was a movie, I think, Lifetime. And she's since, when she passed over, she's come through and she's happy the way she passed. I was in Philadelphia once. And I remember I was really sad about her because she was so nice. I mean, she would do an interview with me at RKO Radio all the time. And she was so kind. She once called me up and said, James, I can't make it. I'm so sorry. Can I do it from the plane? I said, yeah, sure, Joan, go right ahead. So anyway, I was in Philadelphia doing a demonstration. And for some reason, I thought about her. And I went during the intermission to my dressing room. And there were all these autographs of people that had appeared on that stage. And I locked into Joan Rivers. All my love to you, Joan Rivers.
Oh my gosh.
So I went back on stage and told people. Who else? Yeah, Judy Garland, Thomas Jefferson, Edgar Allan Poe, a lot of different people. Those are just some. Edison. Yeah. A lot of
wow. Well, James, what were some of the readings that changed your life?
Well, the one I remember the most, everyone might know about was, I mean, there's so many. I changed my life. It's hard to say, but the one which is most incredible, which I can remember, there's so many, was when I was in Maui, Hawaii, at the Performing Arts Center, and this little girl, about 3 years old, with blonde hair, pigtails, pink dress, she's jumping up and down. She says, I want to speak to my mommy and daddy. I want to speak. It's my birthday. So I described to the audience, and sure enough, a couple in the very back row, they raised their hand and said, that's our daughter. Today's her birthday. And she said, Daddy, I love the angel wings. Thank you, Daddy. And I said, she's talking about angel wings with you. You have her angel wings. You made her angel wings. The guy is a big dude. He's a gym guy. And he stands up, takes off his T-shirt, turns around. And his lats are filled with these 2 tattooed angel wings that he did for his daughter's birthday.
Oh, I still have chills when I hear that story.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a pretty good one. And I mean, it's always amazing to me the way spirit works. And another time, a little boy came to me with his mom and my bus, and his brother and father came through. And I said, they showed me a cockpit on it's a mountain. And I said, they're going into the mountains, and they died in plane crash. And he said, but I'm okay, Tom. I'm okay. He said, and thanks for wearing my shirt today. And sure enough, he was wearing his brother's shirt, which and other details like that came through. I mean, everything that the spirit comes through with. Geez, but you're wearing me. You're wearing me. Yes, you're wearing part of me. The person would have the ashes in a necklace or a pendant.
Oh my gosh.
You get that as well. All these incredible.
Yeah. It's always amazing. But James, you were also one of the things that you did, and you've always done, but in this book, you really started with this, was to dispel the power that we give to the emotion of fear.
Yeah. Yeah. So
can you talk about why that's so important?
Well, to me, I was raised Catholic, and I think religions are based, a lot of religions are based on fear to control the masses. There are bits of God and truth in all religions. Not one religion is all the truth, with little bits of truth. And the truth is just love, not fear. Fear is false ego appearing real. And fear is an element of this earth, this three-dimensional limited world. And of course, it's hard not to be in fear because we're raised, unfortunately, in society by our parents who want us to be a certain way, our teachers, you have to be this way, behave this way. So we kind of get programmed. I think in a kid's mind, they think, well, if I do what they want, they're the grown-ups, they know right. So I've got to do what they want. And maybe they'll love me more. And I think that's really what happens. And I think people get into that. And I think then they become people pleasers, and some more than others. And they just want love. And then they become doormats. Right? They get this bad relationship, just looking for love. And I think around the middle age, 30s, 40s, they start questioning something because I think there's a yearning from their soul. There's a whisper from their soul. There's a soul saying, wait a minute, this is not you. You have to wait. You can't waste your time. And I think then they start questioning their life and who they are. And they start looking at their journey in a different way. And they realize they've given their power away to other people. And they say, what other people think of you is none of your business, because it's true. Nobody can love you more than you can love yourself. Nobody knows you more than you know yourself. And we are all distinct. Every single person is an individual, just like snowflakes. And when we come together as one, we make a beautiful scene. And people should just honor who they are. They're not like anybody else. And we are love. We are souls having the human experience. And soul is made of love, pure love. There's a love that we can't even fully grasp in this three-dimensional world. But it's that love that brings them through. It's love that guides us. And fear is a low, dense, limited way. It's a motivator for many, of course. But when it's out of proportion, that can hurt people and destroy worlds and create wars and really destroy beings and
Well,
lives.
that's why it's so important. Your message has been so important to the
Yeah.
world and
It's
changing
really
and shifting the consciousness.
and it's really self-love. I think
Mhm.
that people are successful in life if they have that relationship with self. They get to the point where they love themselves. And I always say, if you can make the world a better place than you found it, you're successful. Because as I talk about in the book, and I always talk about this, that one of the things which stood out to me in my progression, my development, my education here was that, and this came from Brian Hurst, was there's a life review. And also Brian Weiss. I worked with Brian Weiss for 22 years on cruise ships. And Brian Weiss, the author of Many Lives, Many Masters, he would often talk about this with past life regression. And it's, we all have a life review when we pass over. And we look and we see and we experience everything we did in this lifetime from the other soul's point of view. So if we had a bad thought, a bad word, we acted out, we'll feel it from the other person's point of view. The example I use is, let's say we're in a bad mood, we go into a store and we yell at the shopkeeper, who in turn gets upset and yells at their coworker. And the coworker gets upset, the energy shifts, and they go home and yell at their family members, so forth and so on. When you have your life review, you become aware of that shopkeeper, what your words did, what you created with your words and your thoughts, and how you acted. And you have to feel it from that person's point of view 10 times, 20 times, 30 times stronger, and then the other person's point of view, and the other. And you become to realize the rippling effect of the one thought, the one word you created. Because everybody to me is God, and God is creation, God is pure love. We create with our thoughts all the time. And we really want to keep it at a higher level, not go low. Because when you pass over and have your life review, you're going to want to have a good experience, not a regret. The biggest thing about hell and purgatory, my friend Peter tells me about this as well. It reminds me, that he thinks the biggest purgatory, hell, if you will, is the regret and the resentments and the things that are not done, not said, holding back love, holding back what could have been. I wrote a book years ago called Unfinished Business. And I wrote that book because I got tired of spirits coming through and saying, if only I knew then what I know now, I would have chosen love. I really would have thought about what I've said and done. Oh my goodness. And that's why I wrote Unfinished Business, because I didn't want anyone to suffer when they pass over. It should be a good experience.
Wow, James. Well, James, how did the movie come about of Talking to Heaven?
Oh, Kellee, it's a great story. Thank you for
know.
Good story.
Well, it's such a good movie, and it was a long movie.
A couple of weird things. Before I forget the Eva Longoria story, it's good. Yeah. I did a work with CBS. I did a reading for a lady who was in charge of CBS movies. Went extremely well, and she's the one who said, "Let's do a movie of your book, Talking to Heaven." And what happened was, it was sold to, I think it was CBS. Oh no, I'm sorry, NBC at the time. And NBC had it, and they really couldn't do much about it. They lost the development period, and CBS bought it. And there was a writer on the plane writing the book, writing the script. And Mary Steenburgen, there's an empty seat there. And she told me, she goes, James, I never talk to people on planes. But my father in the spirit world was pushing me to sit down and talk to this guy. So I said, oh, what are you writing? He goes, well, it's funny you're sitting. I'm writing a script for the book Talking to Heaven. And she said, oh, that's my favorite book. I did it to 6 of my friends. It's great. Do you know the author? He goes, yes. And she says, can you get me a reading to meet him? Because I might be able to. So long story short, I went and met Mary at her house. And listen, with some celebrities, I do because of the work they've done. I think it was nice of thanking them. So I went into the living room there, and great people. Mary was great. And there was Ted, and he was wonderful. And other people that were, I guess, well-known producers, directors, who know, celebrities, recognize them. And did some great readings. And I got to Ted, and I said, and he was sitting on an ottoman. And I said, your father is here. And one of the things that came through was he's wearing his herringbone jacket. Now, he's in heaven. If he's wearing his herringbone jacket and he has a scotch in his hand and in front of the fireplace, you'll know it's in heaven. And Ted falls off the ottoman.
I bet.
Oh, Jesus. Ted dancing on it. I was like, oh, God, it's terrible. So what happened was afterwards, he said to me, that was incredible. And he wasn't a believer. He goes, that was really incredible. My father used to come home from work every day, put on his herringbone jacket, sit in front of the fireplace, and have a drink.
Wow.
And that's how he died. So, okay.
Oh, my God.
So the day after that, I got a call from the producers, and they said, listen, CBS is having a really hard time casting the show. Gary Sinise won't do it. This other guy won't do it. They said they don't want to play mediums. And I said, oh, well. I said, well. And then it wasn't the first time. And he goes, but, who was the head of the CBS was that gentleman, lovely man, Les Moonves. Les Moonves said, there's one person going to try. There's a man on a TV show called Ted Danson, who does a show, Becker. And, we think he's good friends with Ted. He's going to ask Ted. I said, well, that's so weird because I was with Ted's last night doing a reading. Oh, my God. And they said, can you ask Ted? And I said, no, I can't ask Ted. That's crossing the line. I cannot do that. It's confidentiality. So what happened was they spoke to Ted, and then his manager called me and he asked me about the reading. I said, well, it was really incredible. And he goes, well, they're asking me to do the movie. Can we meet? So we met. Ted agreed to do it because Jake Gyllenhaal's father decided to direct it, a great director.
Wow.
And we went and we did the movie, and it was in Vancouver. And Mary was in it, and Ted and Queen Latifah was there.
Queen Latifah was in it. And Jack Palance was in it.
Yeah, Jack Palance he played my father, and he looked just like my father. He acted like my father. I walked into the trailer, and I said, "You're just like my father. What do you want?" I said, "Well, you sound like my father too." It was funny. And Queen Latifah would walk into a set, and she's singing, and had a great voice. And then the funny thing was, I walked into a set. Now I walked in. There were these trucks, these production trucks, and they all had the word Driscoll on it. Driscoll, and that was the name of the production. I guess the truck company. Driscoll was my grandmother's name.
Oh, okay. That's amazing.
But I go into the set and looking at little Jamie's bedroom, who's 5 years old, and I'm like, this is weird. The wallpaper was the exact same wallpaper I had in my bedroom in 1963, 64. Wow. I'm like, how did they know that?
That's amazing.
And it was a very specific type of wallpaper. So the whole thing was magical. It was really, it was one of the highest gross. It was not a movie, then it was a mini series because they loved it so much. And it became the #1 mini series in CBS history outside of Jesus. Jesus stood behind.
Wow.
Jesus.
That's just
and from that, we did another movie with Anne Heche, The Dead Will Tell, based on a reading I did, where there was a ring and a message was in a ring. It's a true story. And on the set in New Orleans, and she was interesting, Anne, quite interesting. And then there was a girl that came up to me and she goes, Mr. Van Praagh, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. She goes, I just did a pilot. You think it's going to go and be a series? I said, what's your name? She goes, Eva Longoria. I said, So, well, it's going to change your life. And she goes, oh, thanks. That was it. And then later on, when I was doing Ghost Whisperer at Universal, our studio was right next door to the Desperate Housewives. So I would go to lunch in the commissary, and one day I'm there sitting down, and there's Eva coming down the aisle with a tray, and our eyes locked. She looked at me, I turned, she went, I went, and I ran. I said, well, was I right? Did your life change? She goes, oh my God, James. Yeah.
What a great story with that.
So there's a lot of those sorts of things, and it just makes me realize how involved spirit is in our everyday lives. You really think we're alone. We're not alone.
Well, all of the things, everything that you did in your background prepared you for where you were headed to be.
Everything.
In Hollywood, particularly.
In Hollywood. And it made it okay to believe in mediumship, to learn about mediumship. And John Edward got a show, and then I got a show, and Lisa Williams had a show, and now Tyler Henry has a show. And the only thing I'm concerned about, I'm glad, and even Ghost Whisperer, when I did that, I was a bit upset because it was very fearful. The beginning was very fearful. And I said to the spirit people, I said, why would you do this? Why would you put fear out there? And they said, James, look at the bigger picture. The ending of the show is healing. And I thought, I want to end every show in that vibration of healing. And it's true. And he said, we're here to have people question life after death. And that's what the objective of the show is. And they were right. So, yeah.
Wow. It's amazing. What was your favorite book to write, James?
My favorite, Kellee. It's like, what children do I have?
I know.
It's like, each one is so different because, Talking to Heaven is one of my favorites, was my first one, but they're all so different. I really loved, Reaching to Heaven was great because it talked to the soul. Healing Grief because it's really wonderful for grief work. Power of Love is my last book, and that's one of my favorite books because it talks to everybody about love and that power of love. I love that. I guess that'd be one of my favorite, Power of Love. And I guess that would really be Growing Up in Heaven, but children who pass over.
I always refer that to people.
Yeah, because the way that started was I was walking into my office. I lived in Laguna Beach, and I had, as you know, an office over there. And I walked in my office, and all these children, spirit children, are around. I'm like, what are you doing here? Because I don't see spirit just like that. We're going to open up, close down. So they said, we're going to help you write your next book. I'm like, huh? And they said, yes. So they helped, and they inspired me. I'd sit there and be all around me. I felt them around me. And it was about why children pass, what they do. And it was the souls, looking from a soul perspective. That soul needs that experience of a child. and that's all it needs, then graduates. Maybe a soul needs just to go through birth experience, maybe 10 years, 20 years. They don't have to live a life like humans, that illusion of humans having to live a long life. No, it's soul experience. There are many worlds within worlds and galaxies and millions of places. This is just a small part of who we are and what's out there.
But helping parents like that, James, it was so big, that book, so important.
Yeah, so important. I mean, they're all important in their own way. I mean, Talking to Heaven opened up the consciousness, as you said, to people that it's okay to, see these things. And everybody has experiences. Every single person has experiences of dreams, of psychic experiences, because we're all intuitive. And the more we use that power, the more we can make the right choices in our life.
Absolutely.
And not be influenced by other people. Do yourself. As Oscar Wilde said, you can hear him Leslie Flint tape, and he says it, and I said, be yourself, everybody else is taken. And he said, in my world, on a tape, he said, in your world, it's sinful to be natural. In our world, it's natural to be sinful. And that's, again, you can hear that online. And lovely. I mean, Leslie Flint was a quite incredible physical medium. Really, that was one of the most influential experiences of my life. Plus, when I was in Brazil, I was watching a physical medium materialize, a spirit materialize in a room. And it was amazing. Only 30 people were allowed, all mediums. I was especially invited. And I was like freaking out, being that person I am, like cynical. Is this real? And it was at an orphanage. And it was a Fray Luis Center outside of Rio. And every month they'd have the sickest children in the orphanage go to this house on the hill where the ectoplasm had been built. And the materialization of a doctor that had come through and healed people with this crystal-like rod. And I was watching, so it was amazing. And the crystal rod would glow, all these luminous colors, reds and yellows. And he'd go to certain children and place it. And then they take those children away, put in 5 more cots, and they'd work on. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I want to get up in there. I'd love to get up there. Next thing you know, they're saying to me, I'd said this quietly. They said, come this way. And I went and I laid down on a cot and went, oh, I'm lying down. And the spirit comes next to me. And now what do? I start filling up the spirit. Like, is this real? And it was solid. And he took this thing, went right to my stomach. And afterwards, I felt like there was an operation, like surgery had occurred. And when I got back home, 2 weeks after I got back home, I went to my doctor. And she said, she looked at these x-rays. She goes, what's going on with you? She goes, I don't see your ulcer anymore. You had an ulcer. She goes, it's gone. What happened? I said, well, you won't believe me. So I don't know. It's gone. So yeah, he took the ulcer away. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Experience.
So you've had some incredible experiences.
Incredible experiences.
That you, without a doubt, know that the soul survives.
I mean, I'm really kind of, as you get older, you get a little weary thinking, well, how much longer do we have? But, you got to enjoy your life here in physical. And every day you can help somebody. I mean, I love smiling at people. And I mean, just today at the restaurant, I said, oh, I love your energy. You're great. And say, thank you for saying that. I needed that today. So you never know when you can use loving energy to people. I think that's all of our responsibility. It doesn't take long. And it's, we have opportunities every day to change people's lives in the slightest ways.
Well, there's a great question here, and I have to tell you this. They want to know, are you going to be writing an autobiography?
Well, Talking to Heaven is really kind of an autobiography. I guess I could write an autobiography. I guess it could be the autobiography of a medium. I guess. Someone asked me this weekend, are you going to write, we're waiting for your next book. Where is it? I'm like, yes, I could. I just got to feel it. So right now I'm working on developing a TV show, a reality show for another medium. And I'm working with teaching him on the show. I'll be teaching him. I'll be his mentor. So I'm working on that right now. So that's what I'm really putting my forces toward. But after that, I'll consider doing another book, maybe my autobiography. You think autobiography, really?
I would be a very cool, James, you have such, your incarnation on Earth is extremely important.
I don't feel comfortable. I really have never felt
comfortable. I know you don't. But
shy.
You've done so much on
People
Earth.
Don't know that, but I'm very shy.
Oh, I do know you're shy.
I had a birthday card from 1,200 people this weekend presented to me on stage, and I was like, wow.
That's a huge deal.
It's
a huge deal.
I appreciated the thought, but it was like.
Well, let me ask you this, and this will probably be the last question here. Yeah. But do you think that this is your last lifetime on Earth, your last incarnation?
That's a good question. I think that I might go to Earth another time, not right away. but I think there are going to be other places to go to. I like to experience other places before I come back to Earth. Earth is a hard school.
It's
And
really
I
hard
think we
school.
deserve our time away from here for a little bit to acclimate to other spaces and places. And I think I'd like to visit other planets if that's possible and other places.
Oh, it's possible.
I'll come back eventually. I mean, my soul, I think we all will. I think our soul, I'm sorry, Kellee, I know you didn't want to.
Oh,
But
no, I'm done.
I think we're driven in some way to finish things up and to help people and serve. We have to serve. And wherever I can be to serve the best, I'll go to.
That's a wonderful way to end
But
this, James.
Kellee, thanks for interviewing me. That's very kind. And
Oh,
we're going to be
was so
interviewing you next, I
excited.
believe,
Yes,
right?
you will be. But next week, we also have a very amazing guest. We have Greg Braden is going to be.
Greg Braden is incredible, everybody. You really should tune in. He's my soul brother, and he talks about science and ancient histories and wisdom and civilizations, and he's incredible. You want definitely tune in next week. Thank you, Kellee. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thank
Thank
you,
for letting me
James.
speak of myself. Oh my God. Thanks, Kellee. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.